So John McAfee was a brilliantly fucked up guy. I mean, he was that type of specially deranged asshole that even Charlie Sheen can't hold a candle to. The kind of guy we all wanted to be when we were 14. Except John decided he was gonna do that his whole life. But unlike most people, he was brilliant enough to pull it off. And that's why he's on this channel. So how does someone get so messed up but still be so awesome? Well, McAfee was born on September 18th, 1945 in Cinderford, UK. But what set him apart was his ability as an opportunist to cash in on the trends of his time. See, in the mid-80s, everyday people were computer illiterate, and nobody knew you could use the internet to make hundreds of millions of dollars. It just looked like nerd shit to the everyday person. Computers were in the same category as Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, and not getting pussy. And that's how John McAfee got rich. There was a hiccup in the Matrix. For thousands of years, all the things that made you rich were under tight control of the elite class. And those things didn't really change over time. For a long while, owning land made you rich, so they put in place property tax that cost a lot to purchase, and in medieval times you couldn't even own farmland. You were just a peasant who worked on the land. But nobody knew the internet's money-making potential. Plus, technological development moved really fast compared to all the other things. So before the Blue Bloods and secret society members realized what the internet was, John McAfee got rich before high barriers to entry or any kind of regulation was imposed to stop him. So for a brief moment in history, if you were pretty bright and worked hard, you could get ahead with some programming skills without the wealthy class leeching off of you or trying to stop you altogether. The same goes for John Carmack, and let me know if you guys want me to do a video on him. John wasn't part of the Blue Bloods or born into a secret society. He didn't know which fork to use at a fancy dinner party, but he knew how to code, and he knew other people didn't. So in 1986, when there was a small scare about computer viruses, John started to fan the flames of fear, and the technologically illiterate people went into hysteria. Conveniently, John also provided a solution for the hysteria over viruses and the Y2K scare through his antivirus software. For a price, of course. He put on a slick suit and went on TV and made a bunch of money fear-mongering. He was quoted saying,
"It's not a cynical thing. I trust people to be people, to act in their own self-interest. If you can understand that, you can use that."
And he did use that. His company McAfee Associates was making him $5 million a year, then he sold a stake in the company for $100 million. Not bad for a random nerd. Not bad at all. His newfound fortune made him a target for a lot of people looking to get some easy money out of him. It didn't help that John couldn't keep a low profile to save his life. So to escape legal pressure from potential money-grubbing lawsuits, he told the public that he lost most of his money in stocks during the '08 market crash, which I think is a lie because, as we'll see in the rest of the story, he had plenty of cash for all kinds of crazy stuff. So he went to the country of Belize to lay low until people forgot about him and stopped trying to extract money out of him. While in Belize, he started dating a botanist by the name of Allison Adonesia, who wasn't even that hot. Her work showed some promise, and John funded a laboratory so they could work on projects together. The laboratory might have started out legit, but it wasn't long before John turned this into a drug manufacturing laboratory. Out of this new lab, John was making something called MDPV, which is a drug that does everything Hollywood thinks cocaine does in the movies. It spikes awareness and paranoia, gives you an insatiable sex drive, and what John called godlike stamina. His sexual stamina and appetite was so out of control that his sore genitals were a frequent occurrence. Local prostitutes reported huge sex parties that lasted days on end, and he was wearing these girls out to the point where a few of them tried to kill him. John, these girls need a work-life balance.
His sex has to last long. I mean, you can't give him 1 or 2 hours. He wants like morning to day. I mean, like, you have to be in that bed from morning till the next day, and if you can continue till 7 days, that's sex, right?
So next up in his plan of laying low, he decides to build an outpost in Carmelita, Belize, and he tells the locals he's there to police and bring under control any drug activity. But the only drug activity there was from John himself. Most of this police unit was comprised of former gang members.
So this dude basically assembles a private army with automatic weapons and starts mass manufacturing drugs in Central America. And he thought that was going to be cool with the locals. So not long after he sets himself up as a drug lord, the real Belizean authorities raid his compound and throw him in jail. But because MDPV is so obscure, it wasn't illegal, so they let him go the next day.
This only worsened his paranoid outlook. He claimed he was seeing figures in the night stalking him, which he believed to be the government. How much of this was actually true and how much of this was because of drugs making him look over his shoulder, I don't know, because it really could have been both. But the government of Belize was getting sick of his shit. Instead of chilling out and, laying low, John had a small altercation with his neighbor Gregory Fall. Greg was a US citizen who had a summer home in Belize, close to John's house. And if we look at this situation from Greg's perspective for a second, you're an old guy who has a relaxing summer home, and the next thing you know, John fucking McAfee is your neighbor, and he's got guns, drugs, bothersome dogs, and gangbangers partying at his house right next to you, and he's not even sharing any of his prostitutes. So Greg warned McAfee that if he saw his dogs on his property again, he'd shoot him, which is kinda dumb if you think about it, like you're threatening a guy with a private army. But I get it though, neighbors suck and they always think that your yard is a perfect place for their dogs and their shitty kids to play, keep responsibilities from spilling over into my yard. So next, John reports to the news that he found his dogs poisoned, throwing up all over the beach, and then dying. And I'm sure there's an ATF joke in there about killing dogs, but that's besides the point. A few days later, Gregory Fall was found shot and killed in his own home. John denied having any involvement in Gregory's death, stating that Belize was a lawless murder capital of the world, and implying that anybody could have killed him.
Let me make this perfectly clear. I had nothing to do with the murder of Gregory Fall. You're asking the most ridiculous thing.
This is not, you have to admit.
After Greg was killed, the Belizean government made John a top priority, and he was on the run again. He managed to escape by crossing the border into Guatemala, unnoticed by Border Patrol.
John again didn't keep a low profile and did an interview with Vice, which led to his capture by Interpol. For some reason, all the people I do documentaries on have the trait of not knowing when to quit while they're ahead. And yeah, that attitude might have led them to success, but after you've made it, you gotta reevaluate and then fly under the radar. I gave the same advice in my Pablo Escobar video, which got age restricted, so you know it's gotta be good. But sometimes you just gotta know when to sail off into the sunset. But no, McAfee's not even close to done yet.
So McAfee fakes a heart attack before he gets deported back to Belize, which gave his lawyer enough time to get John flown back to Florida, where Belizean authorities had no power. And since Greg was killed in Belize, American authorities didn't care either. John was never around between the times he was accused of something and the time he could be convicted for anything. So he was never technically convicted of anything. Like, this is so funny to me. The dude's so crafty. He's playing 4D chess, and every time he's about to get checkmated, he's like, nope, and he weasels his way out just in the nick of time. As soon as he shits the bed somewhere, he's just like, alright, I'm out, you guys can deal with the aftermath, I'm just going somewhere else. He even said, I've not responded to a single one of my 37 lawsuits in the past 11 years. They have all been frivolous. Even though judges are required to decide for the plaintiff if I do not respond, I refuse to play the legal extortion game aimed at America's wealthy class.
I mean, he's got a point, but 37 lawsuits and they've all been frivolous? Like, you weren't even a little bit to blame? Not even a little bit? I mean, we should believe him. It's not like his life is a caricature of a cartoon villain or anything.
So after this, John was viewed as a bad boy celebrity back in America. Nobody seemed to care that he murdered a guy or anything. And John decided to run with it and embrace his new image, making viral videos about it and tweeting about whale fucking contests. I'm not joking, you can't make some of this shit up. Then to put the cherry on top, John decided to run for president. Twice. He was adamant that he was a legitimate candidate and was earnestly trying to win, despite running under the Libertarian Party.
All right, so is it official? Are you running for president? Have you filed the papers to run for president?
I filed the papers on Tuesday. I'm officially running, yes, ma'am.
And what is your party?
It's the Cyber Party. That's what we're calling it. It's I perceive our government as being fundamentally dysfunctional on a number of levels.
Not long after, he had to go on the run again because him and some of his buddies were under indictment for tax evasion. Turns out you can be a drug lord, kill people, and bang all the prostitutes you want. But tax evasion? No, tax evasion is where America draws the line. He wasn't even born in America. How did he file to run for president in the first place?
John knew that in certain parts of the world, laws can be skirted around, avoided, or paid off. But his luck would soon run out. Although he lived out most of his life, at the age of 75, a panel of judges in Spain ruled that he would be extradited back to America to face his tax evasion charges. And he might have been able to get away with tax evasion if he didn't advertise it to the whole world. John went on Twitter and said, "Every year I tell the IRS, I'm not filing a return. I have no intention of doing so. Come and find me." Just like Epstein, authorities claimed it was suicide, but people with more than 2 neurons working in their brains simultaneously have a hard time believing this, since his wife and lawyer who spoke with him days before his murder said he wasn't suicidal, and the fact that he called it ahead of time by saying, "If I suicide myself, I didn't. I was whacked." He even got a tattoo that said whacked on his right arm. I don't know how much more clear it could have been. The man called it ahead of time and was provoking the IRS. Nobody survives the alphabet, boys, but I'm not here to convince you of the truth. After all, I don't want to be labeled a conspiracy theorist. I'm just here to present the facts as best I can. YouTube, Google, and mass media all say it's a conspiracy theory, and we all know they have our best interests at heart. I'll let you decide.
This channel makes high-quality documentaries on the famous, infamous, and the interesting. If you want a video on a certain topic, leave it in the comments and I might just put it on the to-do list. Hit a sub on it and never miss a new video.